Hailing frequencies open, and welcome to Star Trek Discoverage, the live podcast that boldly goes into excruciating detail about this week's episode of Star Trek Discovery. I'm your host, Aaron Coker, aka Caliban, and does anybody else find it ironic that a planet full of people with constantly dry mouths would create a language based on whistling? Joining me on the show, as usual, is my co-host. She's also the co-host of the Generations Geek podcast, a more or less family-friendly celebration of geekdom. It's Ella Pearson. Ella, welcome back to Discoverage.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here. It's great to be here. It's great to be able to be here talking about Star Trek in the 21st century and in the year 2024. I hope that continues. There's no particular reason that it shouldn't, but sometimes we forget how blessed we are to have so much Star Trek.
I agree. It's like to think I was on a plane over the weekend and they had some, like Delta has some deal with Paramount. So I was watching the first episode of Discovery in the air.
Yeah.
And to think about like when that first season aired, like before that, waiting and like just being like, oh, I hope it's good. This is going to be really weird. We haven't had anything but JJ track in so long. Like that was so strange.
Yeah. The Vulcan hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it certainly hit the ground running and is still here today. And it has obviously changed, I think, the fortunes of Paramount, the studio, which I guess we can talk about as we talk about the news at the beginning of the episode. The news that there is to talk about. A figure that you may have heard me mention a few times before on the show, CEO of Paramount, Bob Bakish, is out. OUT for CEO at Paramount. On Tuesday, longtime head of Paramount stepped down from his position to be replaced by a trio of executives, Brian Robbins, Chris McCarthy, and George Cheeks, who all have like executive positions essentially at other networks. One of them's a Nickelodeon guy, Showtime guy.
In relation to Sandy Cheeks.
Right. Yeah. Is that a SpongeBob thing? I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, Bakish has been at Paramount and at the predecessor Viacom for 27 years and played a critical role in Viacom owner Sherry Redstone's effort to merge the company with CBS in 2019. And the speculation is that he was asked to step down. This wasn't like his choice ahead of this week's quarterly earnings call about the underperformance of the Paramount streaming service and just sort of general financial woes at Paramount ahead of this sale. Not everybody is happy about a possible Paramount sale. In fact, Wall Street analysts have said in recent weeks that Paramount has lost investors amid worries about basically the controlling shareholder Redstone benefiting more from this deal than individual shareholders and having their shares be diluted. So that's not great. Speaking of Paramount stock, shares dropped 4% early in the week over the ouster of Bakish and the looming studio sale. But with the Skydance exclusivity negotiation period closing, Sony and Apollo Global have made a joint $26 billion offer to buy Paramount and to take it private, which saw Paramount stock jump 13% after the announcement. Now, company's going to company, and mergers and acquisitions are going to merge and acquisition each other.
Stocks.
Yeah, stonks it is.
Succession.
Succession, yeah. Which turned out great for everybody involved. But I mean, obviously,
I've done my fair share of buying and sharing on Animal Crossing, the stock market.
Yeah, right. Yeah. How come there isn't like a AAA stock game, right? The next Grand Theft Auto has to have, you can buy stocks inside of it, right? Stocks in Fart Burger or whatever they've got in that world.
I've made a lot of bells, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, belt futures are high. And so, like, what does this matter? Well, here's what it matters. When you hear that Paramount has canceled, Star Trek Prodigy and it's got to go to some other network, or when they decide that 5 seasons is enough for Discovery, or they decide that 5 seasons is enough for Star Trek Lower Decks, this is all part and parcel of what we're talking about here. And although we don't want to see Paramount go out of business. We don't want to see them like lose business. This is, one of the reasons that they want to merge with somebody. A merger with somebody like Sony would mean mass layoffs, probably at both studios. It would also bring the number of, big original studios in Hollywood from 5 to 4. And the whole idea of merging and just diluting everything down is so popular these days. Everybody is buying everybody. So ultimately, less places to work and managers with more power means less jobs for everybody else. And who knows, it might mean less Star Trek shows as well. So this is something that, I've been keeping an eye on. I think a lot of Star Trek fans are feeling some anxiety about. I don't know. What do you think? Do you have any Paramount stock?
I mean, so much. I'm not that worried about it going that way, and I'll tell you why. Because let's say there are a couple of less Star Trek shows on the air, but Star Trek's still on the air, that's fine. I mean, I don't need like a streak of Star Trek shows the way we have, whatever it was, over a year of every single Thursday there's an episode of Star Trek out. Like, that's all right.
Yeah.
And I've said this before, that I've been worried about quantity over quality.
Yeah.
And I would far prefer 1 or 2 Star Trek shows on the air that are like really, really good and they can blow the budget on. When I was watching the Vulcan Hello on the plane, and my boyfriend leaned over and said, that looks a lot higher budget than what they're making now. And I was like, it's before they had the like LED panels and everything. But like, I mean, the Vulcan Hello is also just like, that was a big budget episode. But...
Oh, yeah, they spent a lot of money on that, and a lot of setups and practical shots.
And it looks great.
It does, yeah. They didn't have the flame jets that they put on the bridge in later seasons. Where something's wrong. We're all going to die in a fire.
Well, and I also feel like if they're going to stick with these 10-episode seasons, I'm fine with like... Because at 5 seasons of Discovery, and I think that we're both feeling this now, it's like we don't know the bridge crew very well. For some reason, there's a new character here, so we're getting to know them even less.
Yeah.
Like, if they're going to stick with 10-episode seasons, I would almost rather the shows be less than 5 seasons, because otherwise you start to wonder, like, where did Girly Pop with the Bob come from?
Yeah.
Where's where this callback to Arium, like, I didn't feel any huge emotion from that because we didn't know her that well.
Yeah, we got to know her right before she died in that episode where she died. Control.
Yeah.
I just, if I found a genie's lantern or lamp or whatever they're in, if I had Green Lantern's lantern, I'd just turn TV back to what it was. And I would find a way to make it work in a streaming environment. I'm not sure, other than the consolidation of big companies, the attendant greed and, the desire to pay off and provide dividends for shareholders. I can't think of any other reason that this is happening, right? For years and years and years, it worked to have 1, maybe 2 Star Trek shows on, a movie every couple of years, and we were completely happy. And now everything has to be a big franchise. And I wonder, I think we're seeing the fruits of that, because a lot of studios are going broke trying to replicate the success of Marvel, or hell, even the car movies, And I just don't, this is like an arms race that not everybody can win. And so I wonder, I see 2 things happening. One, it just continues to go this way. Eventually everything merges into one, Network 23, and we've got a Max Headroom type future. Look it up. Or we get it out of our system and this industry just goes back to just doing what worked before, just having 20 or so episodes, a couple Timex ads, and, during the breaks. And we just get back to like making TV. Now, maybe that's never going to happen, and maybe we'll all be downloading things into our brain on our Neuralink chip that are written by AI. We can't really tell, because technology and media, as I don't know why I'm telling you, you have a degree in this, they affect each other, indelibly. And so I just wish that, like, It's just wish we could go back. Like I like that I have a big flat screen that's in 8K now, but I almost wish that I could get up and click, 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 and turn the channel like that the way I used to. If TV could just be kind of what it was, but this is it now. 10 episode seasons, streamed right to your phone, and then another one and another one. That's just the way it's going to be. So on all of the corporate maneuvering that is going on is all based in that uncertainty, trying to capture people's eyes. So I hope they figure it out, and I hope that Star Trek doesn't become a casualty of it. And I'm not trying to
Yeah.
doomsay. I just want
Hmm.
more Star Trek. I just want it to stick around. It always will in some way, but I don't want it to suffer and to be seen as part of the problem. Which, if I was Sony, and thank God I'm not, they're going to come in and start going, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Starfleet Academy, nobody wants that. Just cut all this stuff out.
It's funny that you say that because I've been thinking about The Walking Dead. Did you watch The Walking Dead when it was airing?
I watched like the first, that for that short first season,
Uh huh.
the first 6 episodes, and
Not for you?
it was fine, but I was like, if it goes on like this, it's not for me.
I love The Walking Dead. I haven't watched it again in a long time. Beside the point. Anyways, I was thinking about when The Walking Dead was first coming out, and it was like on AMC, the channel,
Yeah.
and I had to like block off my Tuesday nights and be like, I can't hang out. Like my friends didn't watch it.
Yeah.
So, and I was in like high school, middle school, whatever. And so I'd be like, I literally can't hang out. I have to go home and watch The Walking Dead with my dad.
Yeah.
And I would go home. And then after a couple of seasons, they were so successful, they had that like after show hosted by Chris Hardwick.
Yeah.
And it was like so much fun
Yeah.
to sit down and like then my dad and I would like talk during the commercials, and it's weird to be like I wish there were commercials, but like when I go to my grandma's, I'm like now they have like a teeny flat screen up there.
Oh.
But sometimes my parents are like, "Oh, let's go downstairs," because there's obviously my dad spends a lot of his time there now, so there's a huge flat screen in like the basement. But I'm like, no, actually, I want to be up here and watch like MASH on retro TV on this dinky little screen.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's not the same if I'm in the basement with all of the lights off. Like
Yeah.
there's not as much feeling. And I remember that feeling of like watching The Walking Dead and feeling like, oh, everyone is watching The Walking Dead at the same time. And it's something that I feel like Star Trek and Paramount Plus, it hasn't really broken into like mainstream culture like the way that Game of Thrones has and did and House of the Dragon. So like with House of the Dragon, I get that same feeling of like we're all sitting down to watch the new episode even though it's on a streaming service.
Yeah.
But with Star Trek, it's like so there's so many people like who are fans overseas, so they're not going to tweet about it until like tomorrow. Like it's just not the same feeling. I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm not asking for, people talk during the commercials of Little Orphan Annie when they were listening to the radio, in the 1950s. Like, I don't think it's going to go back to that. I'm not saying that.
No.
But you're right. Like, the culture has changed. Now you can watch it kind of whenever. So if you're watching a show that your friend has watched and it comes out, it releases on Tuesday, maybe they've seen it on Tuesday, maybe they've seen it on Wednesday, but eventually you all get to see it. The whole after show thing that still kind of exists here and there, but now people you follow a YouTuber, who talks about every episode or is analyzing things. We have that in some fashion, but the way that making the show has taken a back seat or has been contingent on how the show is paid for and designed as a content module that is to be delivered to streaming customers, to pay cable customers and stuff like that. I just wish that, and look, you're never going to get commerce out of Hollywood, but I just wish that you could still find the same kind of artistry that you would get on some of these classic, I call them classic now, but you know what I mean, like 90s, 2000s Star Trek shows where you go,
Sure.
how'd they get away with that? Like they are making an amazing point about humanity. They're making an amazing point about religion or faith, like we're going to talk about in a little bit. And it's like, how did like a syndicated television series or a UPN show like pull that off? And I hope that we can get that again and not just try to appeal to 18 to 35s who maybe don't mind a couple laser guns in a show. So I don't know. Enough old man talk. I got you old man talking. Let's talk about something fresh and new, and that is the latest episode of Star Trek Discovery, the 6th episode of the 5th season of Star Trek Discovery, an episode called Whistlespeak. And we're here to break it down for you. And of course, as always, we are setting a course for the spoiler zone listeners, so be warned, we're about to spoil the episode. The official synopsis for Whistlespeak is, while undercover in a pre-warp society, Captain Burnham is forced to consider breaking the Prime Directive when a local tradition threatens Tilly's life. Meanwhile, Culber tries to connect with Stamets, and Adira steps up when Rayner assigns them a position on the bridge. This episode is written by Kenneth Lynn and Brandon Schultz, both people that we've heard from before, and directed by Chris Byrne, who has directed before. No star date is given in this episode, but of course it follows directly off of last week's episode and the race for the progenitor's technology. And there's no real trivia to talk about. Instead, I want to talk about how this episode, in a lot of ways, I think feels like a throwback to classic Star Trek. The farewell tour continues at this. I'm not going to rub it in, but at this point, I think it's clear that they are going to try to touch all the bases as they wrap up their last season. So here we have we're on a pre-warp society planet. We got to put funny clothes on. And we have to can't tell anybody we're from space. You know, that's a typical, just a classic Star Trek premise here.
Do they have classes for this at the Academy?
They have to.
They have like improv classes.
They must. Yes.
Like,
yeah, everybody.
Like someday you're gonna have to transport down to a pre-warp planet, and they're not gonna know who you think you're an alien.
Definitely. Yeah. If you are bridge trained and you have a red shirt on, then definitely. If you put Scotty on a planet, engineers, they don't have to take that class. But if you're on the command / bridge track, you definitely have to take improv classes. Yeah. That's funny.
You'd just think that there would be something better to do than that by now. Like, where's the invisibility cloak of it all?
Yeah.
Can we not, there's got to be you've got to be able to, tweak the transporter so that when it transports you down, your molecules stay in the whatever, but you can, walk around.
Interesting. Yeah. You know? Like a field or something. They had
trademark CBS.
they had Predator suits in. They weren't even Predator; they were just invisible in Insurrection. And then, of course, we see once Giorgio joins Section 31, she gets face morphing and cloaking tech. So you'd think they would have that. Maybe that's something that was lost over the years.
Because otherwise, it's just insane. I don't know, I've watched Star Trek my whole life. I don't know why I never thought about this before, but I was to think about, if that were me and they were transport down there and just walk up to some people and be like, hey, can we walk with you? We're from down south.
Yeah.
We do things weird down there.
That's
crazy.
And especially this crew. This crew has a lot of strengths.
Yeah.
But being doing a bit, and being totally confident when you have to pretend to be somebody else. I'm not. Riker and Troy, they put the forehead on. They go down there we're from the southern continent. People are like, oh, okay, these guys are from the southern continent. But this crew, they picked the two that I think could handle it the best when they went down.
Well, these guys are from really south.
Yeah, they don't have the accent though. It's weird. But the importance of it is that they have to interact with these people because we have to examine the idea of faith. That's what this episode is really about. In your class,
and let's examine it.
Yeah, well, in your classic, like the episode that I was, alluding to, Who Watches the Watchers. This is an episode like that. My problem with this episode is, in the final analysis, I don't understand the point that they're trying to make. They're so impressed, they're so kind of touched by the devotion of these people, and then that great line delivery, sacrifice. Then Tilly
I did that.
Tilly finds out that she's in a Shirley Jackson situation. She's like, I didn't know this was a Shirley Jackson situation. And so we've got a situation where, maybe their faith is stupid and ignorance is bad. And hey, the solving the entire problem is Michael basically going to this guy, hi, your gods aren't real. I really need your help to save my friend. That's how we solved everything. And then in the meantime, And this is what really blows my mind, and I don't understand. Back on the ship, we continue this runner where Dr. Culber is clearly having some kind of like, he's young still, but a midlife crisis, spiritual awakening.
Spiritual crisis, yeah.
Which I think is a completely cool and valid thing to explore in a character. But it comes in the middle of an episode that's kind of doing the bog standard, well, faith is fine, but let's, make sure science is in there still and believe what you want. Where they're doing that thing. You know how like in Who Watches the Watchers, when Picard realizes that he's reintroduced like Jesus to the Vulcans, and he's like, oh my God, I screwed up so badly. And the episode lands on the idea of, hey, you do you, but also know that, there's a bigger world out there. Remember how that episode didn't have a subplot where Dr. Crusher decides that she really wants to go to mass? Like it didn't like dilute like the point that they were trying to make in that way. I just got whiplash from those two settings throughout the entire episode.
I was gonna say, I also feel like they do that thing where they're like, oh, pre-warp and they have church. Like, isn't that cute?
Right.
They're so primitive. And it's like, all right, let's
And I know people in LA like hiking, but this is nuts. They're going up in the mountains and yeah.
And I'll tell you one thing, if I was Tilly, I would have known that they were gonna kill me.
You would have figured it out?
I would have known. I would have known.
Everybody's
instantly.
really excited about this. Yeah.
This lady misses her friend a lot. She said they haven't done this in 50 years. I wonder why.
Yeah, what happened to her friend? Yeah.
That they were going to Hunger Games me instantly.
Yeah. I guess, see, they left and went to the future before Pike went to the Omelis planet where they set a little boy on fire to keep the paradise going. So if they had read those historical logs, they would have been like, this seems kind of like that. Are we in a 60s sci-fi short story here? Is that what's going on?
Yeah. I'm also like not sure, like, is one of the like overarching themes of this final season of Discovery like spirituality? Like religion?
I guess it is. I think it's really
kind of a while.
I think it's funny that in both this episode and the last episode, the lesson, I feel like the lesson that the scientists who set all this up were trying to teach, future generations, were only really important in the Janal episode. And in the ISS, we're in the Space Butthole episode, at the very end, they're like, well, I guess we were supposed to learn to Station Time Saves 9. And in this one, they're literally like, there's 2 minutes left and they're just sitting on the stairs. And they're like, what were we supposed to learn? Oh, I think it's maybe just to be open to new stuff or something like that.
Well, like, yeah, what is
apparently it's not that important.
And I was going to ask you, like, why is it called Whistlespeak?
So,
like,
I don't know. And why, if it's Whistlespeak, you set that up at the beginning. It's a weird alien thing. That's fine. The resolution should involve someone whistling and not someone humming, unless it's a U2 thing. Whistle and hum? No, that's rattle and hum. And I was watching the episode with my girlfriend, and she's like, maybe they cast an actress who couldn't whistle. People exist. She just can't whistle. But she should whistle. Oh, my grandma sang this tune, and it went like this. She whistles... the beginning of Patience by GNR.
Also, like, guess what? If she can't whistle, get a girl who can whistle.
Right, yeah.
Or, like...
She lied on her resume. Look, I'm an actor. I know what it's like. You say, I can
read
whistle.
That they had somebody, a professional whistler, record the Whistlespeak for this episode.
Wait, why is...
She could have dubbed the whistling.
Why is Bobby McFerrin in this episode?
What is the truth?
He's playing an old elder, teaching them all to whistle. I don't know the answer. That's a very valid question that you asked. All I can think of is somewhere in the development of the episode, they fell out of love with the whistle thing, and then they're like,
and they just lost it.
Yeah.
Why not retitle it though? Why not title it like?
And then they're like, no. And at the very end, as we're pulling out,
God needs no air.
We'll hear what does God need with air? As we're pulling out at the end, we'll hear a little whistle in space. And if you're gonna do that, it's super cheesy.
And it's God?
No, that happened in the episode. It might have been God. I don't know. But if you're going to do that, whistle the Star Trek theme. Just do it. You've cheesed it already. You might as well cheese it on brand, right?
Did that happen in the episode?
Yeah.
I didn't hear it.
They're like, well, we're going to go find Maul and Locke. Let's do this. And then it pulls out and it's like, little whistle. It's like, all right.
That's crazy.
I was thinking.
That why?
Why was I thinking? I don't know. I can't stop.
What were you thinking?
I was thinking that there are no more guest stars, are there? Here's what I mean by that.
I hope not. In general?
Yeah, in the old days, it was a big deal when like Paul Sorvino played Worf's brother.
Ooh.
You know, or David Ogden Stiers was going to kill himself. This is the second week in a row that I've mentioned David Ogden Stiers. I miss him. And like that's all well and good. That's just a holdover of like the way like the star system worked and the way TV guest stars worked. I don't mean to be like an asshole, and I'm not trying to say that people are doing a bad job, but our cast is huge, and then every week we do go somewhere else and somebody comes in, but the people they bring in, they're not famous, they're not gets, they don't have, they're capable Canadian TV actors, you know, but they don't pull the focus, and they don't make you believe that, oh, this is a planet where people have a religion based around whistling. Do you know what I mean?
It's not a Rainn Wilson as Mudd.
Oh, Rainn Wilson's a good example. Although, what happened with that? He should have been on more episodes.
I don't know. He should. I wish that I had seen him today. Imagine they get there and he's just there.
Yes.
And he's like.
Yes, Mudd is a perfect name for a planet. It rains all the time and hits the dust. Yeah. Oh man, you're really torturing me now. Let's try to get through the rest of this really fast. Any other thoughts? I just don't have much to say.
No, I mean I'm cranky because it's not hitting for me.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is maybe the third week in a row that I've said this. I'm usually always like, but wasn't that thing with Tilly great? Wasn't the B plot great? And I love what they're doing with Adira or like something.
Yeah.
And I was watching it today and I was just like, I'm bored. They're going to try to kill Tilly. They're going to save Tilly. They were trying to build up. I felt like they were trying to build up some kind of suspense. Like Culber thought that Stamets was going to be like angry at him for feeling some type of spiritual way.
Yeah.
And of course Stamets is just like, all right, you're my husband. Go to church. Like.
So can I ask you a question about that? Do you think that the Culber thing is building to some kind of reveal or change? Or is
I'll tell you, if it's not, I'm going to have a lot to say.
Or is he just maturing spiritually and literally no one seems to understand this? This has never happened.
No one cares.
It doesn't happen in the 32nd century. People don't have spirituality still. I don't think that's true.
They don't have like you know how they have like a chapel in the hospital? There's no like chapel.
Yeah.
On the ship.
Well,
like I just
remember when we talked about how Kirsten Beyer said that there's no God in the 23rd century. Remember we heard that? So way back in season 2, or was it? No, it was season 1 where Entertainment Weekly did the big cover story, and like Lorca's like, for God's sake, do something. And apparently the reporter was around when Kirsten Beyer said, you probably shouldn't say for God's sake, because we don't have the God in the 22nd century.
I love her, dude.
Yeah,
like,
I love her too.
There's no God here. But so ask someone else.
Entertainment Weekly put her on blast for that.
She's the best, dude.
Yeah, I hope that it is, and I wonder what it is, and it better just be that he kind of annoys Paul with his Roman Catholic stuff or something, because if they break them up, this is going to become a bury your gays relationships situation. Like, why are they breaking up all the same-sex couples, or the non-traditional couples?
Non-traditional.
Did
you catch the little, like, they had to squeak in a little scene with Raynor where it's like, oh, he's teaching?
Yeah.
With Adira? Wasn't that odd?
Well, yeah, and it also puts Adira in the 10th, 11th time we've seen them go, I don't know if I can do it. I did it. It just happens over and over again. I wanted to say 2 things really fast. One, I have forgotten. So I'm going to say the second one and hope that I remember the first one. But this episode is in this attempt for no, you know what? Actually, they're the same one because
Okay,
they're the
fair.
same thing, two and one. Because I was thinking, are we ever going to have an episode ever again that starts kind of in medias res? And I don't mean, I don't know how we're getting out of this 72 hours before. I mean, remember how many like TNG or DS9 episodes would pick up with them already on the planet? Like why does Riker have a weird thing on his head and he's like in a hospital? Oh, because he was sent there to do something to infiltrate this society, and it's not really about his infiltrating the society. He becomes a casualty in the larger idea of the Federation trying to contact this, pre-warp society. Like you would kind of pick up the story like you're already there. Every single episode
Hmm.
of Discovery and most Strange New Worlds episodes start with captain's log or personal log, and then we're on the bridge. Here's your mission. I don't know if we can do this mission. They go on the mission. We did do the mission. Here's the next thing. And that's just like the same structure every time. And that's fine. But like, I'd like to see them really transform Star Trek storytelling and make it their own. And unfortunately, Strange New Worlds is a show built around nostalgia. And I'm going to give Discovery this because it's their last season. But this last
Hmm.
season has been them trying to either say, hey, here's the old Enterprise, or like, hey, here's an episode where we, remember the one where Picard got shot with an arrow? Remember that? And they keep doing that. And it's like this bad reflection of earlier Trek. There's a scene in this episode that I think is supposed to specifically reference something that Picard always does, which is how do you tell somebody that, you're from space? You show them their planet from orbit, right?
Hmm.
That's his move. He's done that 3 different times that I can think of. And in this episode, Burnham shows him a hologram of a planet.
You know why?
And it's
Because they
just,
put that move in the textbook.
that might be a textbook move, but that
They said, write that down, write that down.
that's a perfect representation, a perfect metaphor for me of the kind of poor reflection of original Trek that Start Discovery can sometimes be, and I think has been in the 5th season. Instead of
Hmm.
getting the Earth from space, this is your world. It's like, here's a picture, you get it, and we're off. That's it. We're done. The show's over. We'll never come back. Don't look for us next week. That's not true. We will absolutely be back next week. Any other thoughts about this episode or about where we're going? Is Locke okay?
No.
He got stabbed last episode.
He,
He's leaking.
that is not my business. I'm not responsible for him.
Okay. Maybe Breens, when they get punctured, they lose. It's green. It's coolant. He's antifreeze. He's losing his antifreeze, and they'll have to break up eventually to save his life. She'll have to send him back to get deep freezed in the Breen homeworld.
Mm, a brain blood transfusion.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. We'll go to O'Reilly's Auto Parts and get him a couple quarts. Well, I think that's it for our show this week. A bit of a short one, but thanks for joining
Mhm.
us, listeners. If you like what you hear, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at EISTPOD for updates and to get notified when new episodes of both Enterprising Individuals and Discoverage are released. And tweet to us on the show using the hashtag Discoverage or email us with questions at eistpod@gmail.com. And while you're on the internet, head to your listening platform of choice and subscribe to our show feed. Give us a like. Give us a review. We really appreciate it. It really does help. And if you like the show, tell a friend. Discoverage will return next week on May 9th at 8 p.m. for the 7th episode of Discovery's 5th season, an episode entitled Eriga. So we're finally going to get to find out what the Eriga is and how that applies to our situation here. We'll be here next Thursday to cover it and going live once again at 8 p.m. Central. So join us then. Don't forget to hit the heart, the bell icon, or the like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. We really appreciate that as well. And I think that's it for this week. Ella, thanks as always for joining me to talk about tonight's episode of Discovery. Remind people where they can find you online.
Thank you. Despite my Twitter handle and my attitude this season towards Discovery, I love Star Trek, and you should follow me at Gunner Gold on Twitter,
Ab-
X, if you will.
Absolutely. I love Star Trek too, and I'm on X at KA1IBAN, and you can find all of the shows and content on the Just Enough Trope Network at Just Enough Trope on Twitter. And that is it for us this week. We are signing off. This is Aaron for Ella saying, live long and prosper.